Have you ever tried to style an element and it behave in a completely unexpected way? Maybe width didn't work, or elements stacked strangely, or things refuse to sit side by side. That confusion usually comes from not understanding display behavior in CSS. And today, you finally will be able to understand this display behavior in CSS. Welcome back. If you have been practicing consistently, you are building stronger front-end development skills. And today, we are learning how HTML elements actually behave on web pages. Now, every HTML element have a default display behavior, meaning the browser already decide how elements should behave. Now, good developers don't fight this layout, they just understand it. And there are two main behaviors you must understand. The first one is the block element, and the second is the inline element. These are the two main behavior you need to understand in CSS. Now, every HTML element has a default display value depending on what type of element it is. The default display value for most elements is block or inline. Just like I've explained to you, the two main behavior you must understand is block or the inline element. Now let's take it one by one. First of all, the display property is used to change the default display behavior of HTML element. Now the first one I'm going to look at here is the block element. Now a block level element always starts on a new line and takes up the full width available. A block element, they are always starting from a new line. Now I'm going to give you an example of that here. Let's just remove these styles we already have here. Let me remove this H1 element I have here too. Now, I'm going to create another H1. I'm going to say heading. Let me just say heading 1. Let me come here. Let me create a paragraph. Let me say this is a paragraph. Then let me create a div, and let me say developer box. Now, if you look at what is happening here, this is the block elements I'm telling you about. They are always starting from the next line, from a different line. The H1, the P paragraph, the div paragraph are all block elements. They are always moving to the next line and start again. They will move to the next line and start again. That's the block elements I'm telling you about. There are more examples of block elements, which is the section, the articles, and the forms. Not just these three that I put there, both the section, articles, forms, all these are block elements. Now, let's also talk about inline elements. I'm going to leave this like this. Let me just do something like this. Let me say block. Let me say block elements. Right? Let me leave it like this. Now let me come down here. And let me do something like this. Let me say inline elements. So now let's do inline elements down here. Now inline elements, they behave differently. They stay on the same line and only take up as much width as they need. Now the first inline element I want to show you here is the spin. Let me say hello. You can see now that this now is continuing from the same line this one is. You can see there's no more space here. It's just continuing from the same line. Hello, how are you? Now let's show you another one again for you to know that it's still in the same line. Just to show you that everything is still in the same line. Let's do I am fine. Do you see what just happened? Both the hello, how are you, that is here, and the I am fine are all in the same line. This is what inline elements are. This is inline. This is an example of an inline element. This is how they behave. They behave differently from how the block elements are behaving. The block elements always start a new line. Every element starts a new line. The inline element continues. Every element just continue from where this one stops. That's just what is happening here. Now, you need to understand this, because if you don't understand how all these CSS are behaving, if you don't understand CSS behavior, layout becomes very difficult for you to understand. Now that you have understand this, you know when to use this and you know when to use this. So many developers might confuse themselves when to use this and when to use it. Let me say, for an example, you want to style this and you want your box to be a different color. All you just have to do is to wrap a spin around here. You just come here, you do something like this, and you put in your box there. You put it inside here. You see, now you can target this in a different CSS. I'm just a box, and you style this color to be different. Let's just do that. Let's just do it. Now I can just say text color. Or I don't even need to put the text. I'll just say color red. That's what I just achieved here. I achieved styling only this box, while I still leave the developer around it. And I still leave the developer the way it is. That's just one way we use inline elements. It's very, very important in cases like this. That's why you need to understand inline elements and block elements. Now we're going to also see how width are different in inline and block element. Very simple. Let me remove this back. Let's just leave it the way it is, because this is inline, this is block, sorry, and this is inline. So I just want to leave it the way they are. Let me clear this also. Let me just leave one here that I'll use as an example. Just like this. Now this is block element. Let me call it box. Don't forget, I give it a style of red. We are going to change that. And this is inline element. I'm going to call it inline box. So the box here is the block element, while the inline box here is the inline element we are all know about. So now let me start. Okay, the box is already here. Let me also bring the inline here also. So dot inline. And we are going to take this one by one. And let's remove this red here. I just want to show you how two of them treat width differently. Now, the same thing I'm going to do here, which is I'm going to say background color light blue. I've been using light blue, so let me just continue with it. I'm going to say background color light blue. I'm going to also here I'm going to say background color. Let me just copy this same thing. But here now I'm not going to say light blue. I'm going to say, let me just, so that they'll be different. I'm going to say something like let me use pink. So now you see how they treat width differently. This is what I'm trying to explain to you. Both of them treat width separately. You can see the box is taking the full width of that line. You can see the block element is taking the full width of that line, but the inline element is taking just the width of the content. The inline element is taking just the width of the content. That's how two of them treat width separately. In here now, I can say width. I can say width 300 pixels. You can see where it stopped. Inside here now, I can still do the same width 300 pixels. You notice something? Now the width is working on the box element, but not properly on the inline elements. Width and height behave differently on inline elements and differently on block elements. That's just what I want to explain to you, so that you will not get yourself confused. When designing your web page, when designing a website, you have to take note of all this. The width works separately, they behave differently on block elements, and they behave differently on inline element. Not just the width, but the height, the same thing. They all behave differently. Now, what if you could change how elements behave? Like we can convert an inline to a block element. What if you can change that? It's very simple. What you are going to do here is this is an inline element, but in here, what you are going to do now is just to change this from being an inline element to change it into being a block element. It's very simple. With our CSS, all we have to do is we say display and we change it to block. If you look at it now, it's behaving similar the way block is behaving, because what, we have changed it from the default, which is inline, we have changed it to uh to what's it called, to block element. The same thing with this block element, that by default we can also change it to an inline element, just in the same thing here, and we can just say inline. You can see the same thing. So you don't have to confuse yourself. These are things you need to learn in CSS. You don't have to keep doing this all the time. Yes, it's good to use block when you want to use block. It's good to use inline when you want to use inline. But what I'm showing you here is that you don't have to over confuse yourself. You can still change everything with your CSS. You can see I change an inline element to become a block element with my CSS. In here, I change a block element to become an inline element just using my CSS. These are things you need to take note of, or you need to know in CSS. Now, we are also not going to go into building any mini project. I just want us to understand this entire display, how we can position everything before we build a project generally about CSS. So now, that's what you need to understand in this display in CSS. Today we have learned block elements, we have learned inline elements, we have learned with behavior, the display properties. These are things we have learned in today's class. And I believe that you have finally understand why elements behave differently. In the next video, we are going to learn positioning in CSS. We are going to discover how developers move and control elements on the page. And this is where your layout becomes much more advanced. Just imagine you want this to display here at the middle, or you want it to display here at the right side. In the next lesson, we are going to be learning all this, how we can position an element wherever I want it to be displaying in our page. And I will see you in that next lesson.